Hi AP, welcome to your second for loops video. This time we are doing for loops on the canvas so you can see that our setup and draw functions are back. Please make sure that you have duplicated the starter code from your weekly Google Doc and that you have it open next to this video so that you can code along with me. As with all of our videos, if at any point you need to pause, you need to rewatch, you need to slow down, use that at your discretion, use the pause button, just make sure that you're getting the code. Today's code is going to look super similar to things we were doing yesterday, but this time we are going to use it to draw on the canvas. And I cannot stress enough that for loops are one of the most powerful computational structures that you guys will be dealing with this year. As we get into units 2 and 3, where we start, 3 and 4, when we start dealing with object-oriented programming. Maybe that is unit 2. Sometime in there, when we start dealing with object-oriented programming. You guys are going to see just how powerful these can be, especially when we're sorting through lists of objects or lists of things. But for today, let's just start by drawing a bunch of shapes with a for loop, and we are going to do that starting on line 9. We are going to make a for loop that will create a row of shapes going across. So since we are making a row, their x position is going to be changing, but their y position is going to stay stationary. And that's going to make sense because as I start making this for loop, I'm going to write my for, I'll put in my parentheses, I will put in my curly braces, and then inside this loop, I'm going to call my variable x because it's going to control the x position of those shapes. So I'm going to let x start at 1, and I am going to show a for loop that's a little bit different than maybe the structure some of the Software Engineering 2 students saw last year. There's lots of ways to solve these problems, but I think this one is going to help us really connect to what we were doing yesterday. So I want to draw exactly 7 circles. So I'm going to say that while x is less than or equal to 7, I want x to increase by 1 every time. So this is where I'm going to say the x plus plus thing that we saw yesterday. And remember, x plus plus is the exact same as saying x plus or equal to 1. You can in fact keep it as x plus or equal to 1. If you wanted to add any other number other than 1, you could not use x plus plus. But since I am just adding 1, I am using x plus plus. So I have my x plus plus. Now inside of here, I would like to draw some circles. So I'm going to write ellipse, and I'm going to give them the x position of my x variable. And I'm going to put them at about 100 on the y because that's just a value that makes sense to me. It won't be too high, it won't be too low on my canvas, which I have not adjusted the size for. As we go through this, feel free to make your canvas as big or as small as you would like. And I'm going to keep these circles pretty small. I'm just going to make them 25 unit circles, not ovals, just little circle guys. Then I'm going to go ahead and hit play. And I see I have a problem. I see a circle, and I see kind of this like weird shadow behind it. Like maybe there's several circles, but I am not getting the many circles I promised. And part of that is because, well, the real reason behind that is because their x value is only changing by 1 pixel every time. So as opposed to what we did last year, right now, if I wanted these to spread, I could just multiply this x value by whatever number I want to use to keep them apart. So I'm going to say that I want a space of 25 between them. So every time I have a new number, it's going to be multiplied by 25. And then I'm going to go ahead and hit play. So now here, and actually we can console log this because this will help us. I'm going to write x position is, and then I'm going to print x times 25 so that we can see this. Okay, so we can see that the x position of my first circle, oh god, this prints forever because it's the draw function. The x position of my first circle is 25, my next circle is 50, then 75, then 100, then 125, 150, 175, 200, and then I am done drawing. And that's because I chose to multiply by 25. I'm going to get rid of this console log because it's annoying me. If I wanted my circles spaced further apart or less far apart, I could adjust this number. So if I only multiplied by 15, I would still have the same amount of circles, but every x value would be spaced less far apart. So this is still circle 1 through 7, but it is using that multiplication to draw them at different positions. If I multiplied by a higher number, like 50, you would see that they space further and further apart. Last year, some of you guys saw this where we would use just bigger numbers in our for loop, and that's definitely not wrong. If I knew I wanted my circles to take up the whole canvas, I could say that like while x is less than my width, add 50 to x every time and avoid that multiplication step. But if I wanted to do something where like modulos are deciding that like every third shape should be different, I might want to have a concrete number where I know this is number 1, number 2, number 3, all the way on up until the end. And that's actually what we're going to do right now. So I'm going to build off of the same type of code along that you guys saw yesterday. But instead of just printing if something is even or odd, I'm going to make it draw based on being even or odd. So I'm going to get rid of what's in my for loop, not my for loop itself, but what's inside it. And I'm just going to make a note that what I want to have happen is if the number of the for loop, so that's like the value of x, is even, draw an ellipse. Else, if it's odd, draw a rectangle. That's my goal here. So just like last time, inside of that for loop, I'm going to start an if statement. I'm going to get my parentheses and my curly braces all settled. And then inside this if statement, it's going to look very similar to last time, but instead of that num variable, I'm using the x from this for loop. So I'm going to say that if x mod 2 is the same as 0, remember that means it's divisible by 2 because there's no remainder, so that number has to be even. Then let's draw my ellipse where I have x times 50 and my y value of 100, and let's keep it at 25. Else, I want to draw my rectangle where let's still do x times, let's do x times 25. Let's see what that looks like. My y value can stay 100, and let's make these like 25 by 25 squares. So now I'm going to hit play. Ooh, this got a little crazy. And that's because these draw differently. Let's see if I make this 50. Okay, that's cool. So now I see that I have every even circle. So even would be 2, 4, 6. It's drawing an ellipse. Every odd value, so 1, 3, 5, 7, it's drawing a rectangle. And they're just a little off because circles draw from the center and rectangles draw from the corner. So if I wanted to fix this, I could maybe move the rectangle up a little bit if I want to try and get them in line. It's almost there. Let's call it like 87. There we go. So now I have like my nice little line. And I could also choose to make these multiply by different values if I wanted them to be closer together. But I have a distinct difference in what's being drawn. I could also use this to make like coloring decisions. So I could color these differently. I could also like work in some of the variables that you guys have seen in the past to color things differently. But now each of these is being drawn on their own, and I can do as much or as little as I want inside these conditional statements. What you guys are going to be doing is recreating some of the similar tasks from yesterday where now you are drawing on the canvas. Some of these are going to ask you to draw a lot of different shapes. I think the most you'll be drawing is 50, so feel free to keep your shapes small. Feel free to also resize your canvas and make it quite a bit bigger than the 400 by 400. You're welcome to experiment with what some of these things create for you. It does not have to create straight lines. You guys saw that with the rectangle and circles, it kind of made a zigzag. You can make choices of things that you want to be the same or not the same. I could make these rectangles start at 50 on the y-axis, so they are much higher than the circle. Please feel free to play with those design decisions. The most important thing is that you are using for loops and conditionals and modulos to make some decisions about your program for you. Good luck with this, guys. Please come to Lab Lounge hours if you need it, and please also reference the stuff you guys did yesterday, because as far as the for loop goes, it has everything you need. You just have to figure out what will work in your conditionals. If you notice your code is getting a little unwieldy, you can also go up to the top and go to Edit Tidy Code, and that will kind of snap everything into position for you as far as indentation goes if you feel like you are losing your curly braces or where things belong. Talk to you later, guys.